Welcome to Navigating College Success, the podcast where we explore the intersection of effective SAT preparation and personalized college advising. I'm your host, Ramya Ashok, the founder of CollegeBound Experts. I help students achieve their college goals with respect to US university applications with a personal touch. My background includes US application guidance training from the US Department of State, and I have been guiding students through the US education system for over a decade. Today, I'm excited to introduce Vinit Shah, founder of Edficacy. Vinith has 7.5 years of experience in quantitative finance in India and London and has taught math to over 800 students in Mumbai. He holds a master's in finance and economics from the Barcelona School of Economics and a bachelor's in electronics engineering from Mumbai. His platform, Edficacy, helps students prepare for international exams like the SAT, IGCSE, AP, and IB. In this episode, we will discuss strategies for optimizing SAT prep and the importance of a strong application and how a holistic approach to both can set students on the path to success. Whether you are a student aiming for top colleges or a parent supporting your child's journey, this podcast will provide valuable insights to enhance your college application and application preparation strategy. So, welcome, Vinith. It's so good to have you here.
Thank, thank you, Ramya. It's great to be here too.
Thank you. So, with this, let's get on to the question and answer. My first question is to you, Vinith, which is so, Vinith, you have built Advocacy into a well regarded name in SAT prep, and I'm really curious about the story behind it. So, what
Right,
sparked the idea of advocacy?
right. So let me give you my example. So, when I would, as a student, right? So be it the 10th standard or the 12th grade exams, preparing for JEE or even
Mhm.
MBA entrance exams,
Yeah.
right? So the way most of these students, the way I prepare, and I think it's true for almost all the students,
Mhm.
is we have to do a lot of practice, right, in order to
Mm.
prepare for any exam. So basically, we had to like suffer quite a bit.
Mm.
So basically, it meant like suffering is, um, the more you suffer, the better your chances of getting a good score is.
Yeah.
So I thought like it never really sat well with me that a student has to suffer in order to get a great score in any of the exams. So that's where I thought like, okay, I need to create a platform where the students can get a very good score without
Mm.
suffering
Mm.
uh, for the exam. So that's where advocacy comes in. So Ramya, I was also keen actually, that you've been in this college counseling space since a long time, right? And but now you're starting your own company, right? It's been since a few months, and so I wanted to understand, uh, that let's say if a student actually comes to you, then what is the first piece of advice, that you would have for the student when they're starting on this admissions process?
Mm. Okay. So, the first and the foremost piece of advice that I would give is find your right fit. Find a college that absolutely fits your needs, is what I would say to the student. And I suggest that they make a list of what they want in a college and research schools that match their criteria. That is, the criteria is the list. So, getting organized early is very, very crucial. For applications starting in August, I generally begin advising students from that year, January onwards. And I highly encourage the students to start early because it really gives them tremendous advantage over those who start just about 4 or 3 months before the deadline. And also, I tell them to create a timeline just to track the deadlines and also start on the essay drafts. This will definitely ease the stress and improve a lot of preparation. So, this is one very important, what do you call that, an advice that I definitely give my students before I start advice.
Right. So exactly, right? Because admission process is like way more involved, than just preparing
Mm,
for a test prep. I mean, than
yeah.
for just SAT, because you have
Mm,
scholarships and to apply for several universities. So
correct.
as you mentioned, right? So applying starting early is very important. And
Yeah.
but so let's say you start from January, and so I mean, so as a student, I would think like, okay, I'll have to prepare for the test, I'll have to apply for the scholarships. So
Mm.
when do I start applying for these scholarships? You know?
It's part of your application itself. When you are talking about scholarships, especially for US universities, it is generally a part of your application. And US universities have this process, what is called as a holistic application review, where they not only consider the numbers would mean your academic performance right from your ninth grade onwards, but also the SAT or the ACT prep numbers, test numbers, as well as your English proficiency numbers if you are an international student. So, overall, they will consider the numbers plus a lot more other things, especially your extracurricular activities and your personality itself. They want to see if you will fit, you as a student would fit their student community, all the things that the university has to offer, because US universities have a lot of things to offer. And they are, say for example, if you're going for an undergraduate degree there, it's not just what you learn from the classroom, it's a whole lot of experiences that you will immerse yourself in. It could be for somebody who is in the computer science area, it could be some kind of a club related to the computer science subject itself, or maybe their passion, if they love to stargaze, there could be a stargazing club with a high intensity telescope for students to just camp out during the weekend and look at the stars, etc. So it's a lot more that they can take in. So for that, universities definitely would want to see if the student would be a good fit for their campus, their student life, and all that. So basis that, the holistic review that they offer will decide whether the student is eligible for a certain type of scholarship that they are ready to offer. So your application on its whole, including the academics, the SAT numbers, primary, very, very important, both the academics and
Huh.
the standardized test. Apart from that, that will be your first level of filter. After that filter is done and you're through it, they will take a look into whatever else that you're bringing to the table, and that would decide, the whether the student would be eligible for a scholarship. So yeah, it's totally merit. Merit would be a holistic evaluation of all the things that you present in your application to a college. I definitely would want to ask you a next question. That would be okay. So I'm literally very curious. What are the strategies do you recommend the students who are unsure whether they should focus on improving the SAT score or invest more time in the other parts of the application? So, what do you think would be the better strategy that you advise? Because it's a holistic application, also, right?
I mean, because it is a holistic application, as you said. So I think SAT is just one part of the puzzle. So, but SAT is actually getting pretty important. So, as
Mm,
many universities, many of the Ivy League universities, like Brown University, Dartmouth, and Stanford, and Caltech, right? So, Stanford from 2026 onwards, Caltech from 2025 onwards, they're all making SAT mandatory. So,
mandatory,
it
yeah.
looks like SAT is going to play a very important role in the student's application. But having
Mm,
said that, SAT is not going to be the decider, right? Because it's highly competitive. I mean, if you
yeah.
look at the number of international students in any of this top universities, it's between 10 to 15%. And
Mm,
if you look at the quality of the applications, it's
yeah.
very rich, right, from the
Mm,
international applications. So
mm,
most of them have a very good SAT score. So it's a given. So you need a great SAT score. But
mm.
apart from that, you also need to have, the other uh, pieces of the puzzle in place too.
Correct.
So I would suggest, yeah. test prep is important, but as are the other aspects of the
Other
admission
aspects.
process.
Wonderful. So when that leads me to the next question. So generally preparing for the SAT can be absolutely overwhelming for a lot of students. Not many students would test well because see they would be absolutely intelligent, but when it comes to tests, that's
Mm.
not their strength, right? Taking the test. And there is a lot of stress that is involved in it as well. It definitely could be overwhelming. So now, I would love to ask you this based on your experience. So, what is one common mistake you see the students make when they begin the SAT prep journey? And more importantly, how can they avoid falling into those traps, those mistakes,
Right,
and set themselves up for success?
right. Uh, so one common mistake I've seen over the years is that students. Uh, so there's a lack of planning involved, I would say, lack of
Ah,
strategy around
mm,
how to, prepare for an exam such as SAT. And the problem right now is there's a lot of information overload, right?
mm,
So you get
mm,
very quality material, uh, content, on several websites. So
mm,
there's a good amount of information available for students to prepare. But the problem is students don't know how to strategize preparation, right? And then what
mm,
happens is they get overwhelmed with all the
mm,
information, with all the content that is out there. So it's very
correct.
important to have a plan in place, like, okay, these are the number of hours I need to devote for this or that. You need to understand your
Mm,
strengths and weaknesses. You need to do analysis, constantly, right? Like, okay, I'm good in that topic. I'm not good in this topic. And how do you work
mm,
on that? And so that's very important. So the plan strategy and planning is important. And
mm,
what that also takes care of is the stress level, right? Because if you don't
mm,
plan very well, then what usually happens is you tend to over practice quite a bit, then you
mm,
tend to not sleep quite a bit, right? And then
mm.
your eating and other habits, they also get affected by this,
Absolutely.
right? And all of this add to stress. So what
Mm,
we at Efficacy provide is, so we have this learning app where the students prepare in the most efficient manner possible. But
mm.
then if the student is struggling with any doubts, any questions if they have, then what they can do is they can just book an instant tutoring session with our
Wow.
tutors.
Mm,
So if they have any doubts, they can just get it cleared, in like 15 minutes or so.
mm,
And that way, we're trying to reduce their stress and um, reduce their effort to, look for solutions on the website, on Google or any of the websites.
mm.
But
That's
I would
wonderful.
imagine, it would be something similar for you too. I mean,
Yeah,
in terms of right, like the stress level. I mean, as I say, because the admission process itself is very draining, right,
it
mentally
is. It
and
is. Yeah.
physically. So how do you take care of that, with respect to the students?
Yeah. So stress is a natural part of any college application process, and I definitely guide my students through it, helping them to stay proactive and organized. That's the main thing. In addition to encouraging an early start, like I mentioned a while ago, I stress the importance of being proactive. Absolutely. So I recommend that students complete basic or common tasks like drafting the Common App essays, requesting
Mm.
letters of recommendation, and preparing their activity lists. All these three things really take a lot of time. So, well in advance, at least go ask your teachers of the recommendation letters, so they know that what is ahead of them and they can prepare it, because so many students are going to ask them for the same. So, that gives them a lot of time to prepare when you go to them early. So, I also advise them to use time management tools such as maybe a Google Calendar, or Notion is big time with a lot of students, and maybe other note taking apps that they are comfortable with to keep track of the deadlines and all the tasks that they give themselves. Creating a personal application progress tracker is also a very good idea that I highly recommend. See, although Common App has a tracker in it, it would be very, very helpful if you could use a simple workbook, an Excel workbook, to just track it, or whatever system works for you. Personally, you can do that as well. So that is a
Mm.
good thing. And another key piece of advice that I would want to tell them is, this is very that I insist to all of my students, and very interesting that a lot of students do this, which is to set up a separate email account for college applications itself and share the login credentials with their parents. because when these children are very, very busy and they're not able to look into all those everyday emails and other things, parents can always take a look into it
Right.
and see if a college is sending them some kind of an update or some status that they need to update in the portal, etc. So it's important that they don't lose track of any kind of communication and keep in track all the deadlines. So yeah, these are the things that I do. uh, so
That's a great idea of
hmm,
having a separate email account.
yeah, I do that, and a lot of students practice it actually. So it's you don't like mix both your personal and your
Yeah.
college. None of the important emails just gets mixed into all the personal emails as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So now,
And it's free. Creating an email account is free.
absolutely. So I mean, free, and it's so helpful as well.
Yeah.
So now,
Yeah.
Vinith, I want to ask you. See, the SAT prep market is very, very competitive with a lot of
Right.
resource materials available to the students. What sets efficacy apart from the other options out there, other people out there? What makes your approach very unique, and why should SAT test takers choose efficacy over the other programs? Even if you look at it, the college board itself has a free academy, so
Right.
learning academy with Khan Academy. So,
With
what is
Khan
it that
Academy. Yeah.
makes it different? That is, efficacy is different.
Right. Uh, so yeah, as you said, like Khan Academy is a great resource, right, for
Hmm.
students to actually practice for SAT.
Yeah.
But what is different in efficacy is how students actually prepare for different kind of questions and all. So as I said, the idea behind efficacy is how you can make learning more efficient, right?
Hmm.
And how you can help students prepare uh, for, I mean, for time management, right? So when it comes to taking this kind of test, timing is also very crucial, right? You cannot afford to spend
Absolutely.
a
Hmm.
lot of time on one question or the other question. So
Hmm.
what that means is you need a lot of strategies on how to tackle several questions, which will not take a lot of time. So where
Hmm.
efficacy comes in is that, okay, like there is one way of solving it where you have to use all the fundamentals,
Yeah.
which efficacy does provide. But then there
Hmm.
is another way of solving it too, right? Which involves a lot of this uh, shortcuts and strategies, which will help you kind of tackle the question in much less time. Some of the questions, not all of them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what it differentiates efficacy from Khan Academy. And apart from that, what also differentiates efficacy from any other learning platform is it's data driven. So what that means is, uh, so when I was a math tutor, so my supervisor, math tutor, how he would interact with the students is, let's say a student came to him with some doubts, then
Hmm.
he wouldn't directly give them the solution to a question. What he would do
Hmm.
is he would rather ask more questions like, okay, how do you do this? How do you do that?
Hmm.
And reach the solution to that question. So we have a similar approach with efficacy.
Hmm.
So we call it the interactive solution guide. So the solution, it kind of interacts with the student
Okay.
by not actually giving them the solution to a given question, but breaking down the solution into simpler questions, each of them testing a mini concept. So the idea is when you practice one question on efficacy, you just don't learn one concept, you learn multiple concepts, mini
Hmm.
concepts.
Hmm.
And what efficacy also does is it helps to identify the fundamental learning gaps,
Okay.
that a student would have. So what usually happens in on the other platforms is the learning gaps are identified at a more surface level, but we
Hmm.
identify it at a more fundamental level so
Hmm.
that the students can just target, practice on those stuff. And on top of it, if a student is struggling with anything, then they can just, book a call with us and get instant tutoring sessions, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes
Hmm.
on the topic that they like. So
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's
yeah.
really good. Mm.
Yeah. So, Ramya, one question, I have is, so
Yeah.
I've been reading in the news lately, right? Like, uh, many of the other countries are also trying very hard to get students, into their universities. So like UK
Mm-hmm.
or Europe or Australia or even some other countries too, right? Like they are kind of raising up their game.
Yeah.
So the question is that making admissions into US universities any easier, or it's getting, still harder actually?
Okay, so if you look at the numbers, when of student mobility internationally, you definitely see year after year US universities taking the first spot. Especially people can just go and take a look at the open doors numbers, which are published by the Institute of International Education. So that goes on to say that US universities definitely have taken the lead in terms of inviting students to their whatever uh, their programs and their universities itself, right? So keeping that in mind, what sets US universities apart? A lot of things. The first thing that I would want to bring as a highlight is the flexibility of courses itself. So there are a lot of students, when I also help the students to choose a stream if they are really confused right in their beginning of their what do you call that, the high school. But if there are students who are really unsure about what is the stream that they would thrive in, etc., US universities definitely gives them an option to flexibly apply as an undecided major. Number one, if they totally don't
Oh,
have a clue, they can apply as an undecided major. For example, I had dealt with students who are interested in computer science, game design, creative writing and journalism all at the same time. So these type of students, definitely they have a little bit going on in STEM as well as humanity subjects as well. So undecided major is a great option. There are students who are interested in engineering, or engineering, or the pure sciences, but they don't know which part of pure science or which engineering that they are interested in, or it applies to humanities as well, is that they can apply as an undecided major within a particular school of so and so, school of engineering or school of humanities or arts and science school, etc. So within that they can apply, and then the first 2 years or first 1.5 years they can play around with the different um, programs that are available to them.
right.
Then they can
Mm,
narrow down and declare their majors. So that is a big draw for the
mm,
students when US universities are concerned. Apart from that, the facilities that are available for US universities, I know of libraries with robotic arms to help the students to get the books from the top tier, as well as there are high intensity telescopes and observatories in different universities, and there are what do you call that, pet nuclear reactors for their
wow,
lab purposes in different universities. So that goes on to say that,
fascinating.
absolutely,
Mm.
so that goes on to say that the facilities that are available for students to test out is amazing, and the faculty, you will see,
And on top of that,
yes,
you also have the scholarship, the
absolutely,
enormous
the scholarship,
scholarship
it's
available.
amazing. The
Yeah.
scholarship is undeniably
So that is
literally a
unparalleled,
lot.
right? Like the scholarships on offer for the US universities is unparalleled, right? Like you don't see that kind of
Absolutely
scholarship offered in the
unparalleled.
UK.
Yeah, when you compare it with the other countries, scholarships is amazing. If a student does not get scholarship for some reason, there are so
Mm,
many ways that they can what do you call that, comfortably study at a US university, primarily for international students especially. They have
mm.
the curricular practical training and the optional practical training. Under the curricular practical training, their co-ops and internships come. A lot of students ask me, what exactly is co-op is a system where your academic subject, as a part of your academic subject or a curriculum, one semester you will be working with the related industry, right? Whether you're in
Mm.
psychology or bio or computer science related industry,
Wow.
you get a chance to work, and as a part of that work you will be credited. You will be getting course credits. That's your method of testing the way you work, etc. So you get course credits or academic credits, you get paid for the work that you do, as well as you receive the relevant information, experience that before you even come into the industry for jobs, you are already having relevant information. So that is a big
Right.
deal as well. So scholarships, absolutely great. And many other ways that you can
Right.
defray some amount of living expenses, right? So definitely it would help. So these are all some of the things, but there are lots that I can talk.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Great.
That's some things that definitely are, we can look forward to.
Huh. And
Yeah.
obviously there's that US economy, which is also like, doing again still pretty good. And compared to again Europe or UK or other countries, so there are like a lot more job opportunities, and not just any job opportunity, like very high paying jobs
Mm.
in USA than you'll find in other countries. And there's also a big option for students to stay back, right? Like again, compared to other countries, it's not very
Yes,
easy to stay back either.
that's the optional practical training as well. So when a student is in a STEM course, they get 1 year first, the 12 months worth of, the optional practical training that one would, participate in. Apart from that, the next 2 years also they can extend if, basis the OPT, the optional practical training, which is the part of the F1 visa that the students will be studying in. So those are all amazing opportunities and possibilities that the F1 visa gives you, which is very unique to US
Mm,
universities
mm,
itself. Mhm.
mm.
Yeah. So I have one question that I've been wanting to ask you. See, one of the challenges in education today is recognizing that every student learns differently. And I know Edficacy places a strong emphasis on personalized learning from whatever you have told me now. Could you let us know that how your platform tailors SAT prep to accommodate different types of learning or different learning styles? How do you ensure that each student, whether they are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learners, they get the most out of their preparation?
Um, so how advocacy works is that student has to. So the idea is, students first take mock tests,
Mhm,
and which will help us as tutors or even the students understand, their weaknesses and strengths. And then what they do is they use the interactive solution guide that I mentioned briefly before. So using that interactive solution guide, the student can get a much deeper understanding
mm,
of how to solve each question and
mm,
a deeper understanding of the strength,
mm,
on various topics. And so for every student, the weaknesses and strengths at a fundamental level is very different. But on the
mm,
surface level, you can say, okay, that's a lot of students struggle with geometry. But at a more fundamental level, it's very important to identify, okay, which aspect of geometry.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can see you and
Can
hear
you
you.
still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the more fundamental level, it's more important, right? Which aspect of geometry that a
Mm,
student is struggling with.
yeah.
So that can the app, it provides that feature
Mm.
where
That's
each
wonderful.
student, yeah, would know, exactly where in geometry they're struggling with, exactly where in inequalities
Mm,
they're struggling with. And accordingly, the whole program is tailored that way. Then what they can do is then they can practice with the resources available on the app, or they can have this targeted tutoring, which will
mm,
be like one-on-one tutoring uh,
mm.
with one of the tutors from Edficacy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And
So, yeah, yeah, go on. Sorry, please. Yeah.
uh, what is this one piece of advice, that you would have for a student? Let's say, okay, focus on this aspect of the application or that aspect of the application. What is one thing that you would want the student to
Uh,
prioritize?
okay, so the one part of application that you are asking me if I would prioritize, right?
Yeah.
So the see, of course, as I told you, US university applications have a lot of things going on, right from your academics to so many other things. The one thing that I definitely will ask my students to focus on is the essays as well as the activity section. both are very, very important. And I do a very extensive profiling session with the students. So that kind of is the game changer in the work that I do as well. So very in-depth profiling that I do with the students, and many students who come to me and say that I don't have much of activities at all because I was busy all the 4 years focusing on my academics. But after the 1 hour, 1.5 hours of the profiling session, they go back with a huge list of activities that they had that they didn't realize they had. So that is a very important aspect that I focus on, and I also tell them to create a living list of stuff that they can build up on, and that will be a go-to place for them to take up information whenever an essay requires them to take up information. So therefore the essays and the activity sections are very, very important for an application to the US universities, as well as definitely be in the good books of your teachers. So they write great recommendation letters about you, glowing recommendation letters on you, and generally ensure that your application is submitted in a very polished way, a perfect application, including good SAT scores. Show the universities that you have practiced, you have taken time to prep for the SAT and submit those scores. So, yeah, these are the things that I really focus on with US university
So,
applications.
regarding submission of the SAT scores, so when is a good time actually to submit a score to to any university?
When the application, so when you're starting the application itself, right, submit it as and when your scores are ready. Sometimes some students would have taken the SAT scores, but then by the time they're submitting, the scores wouldn't have come. So as soon as the scores are there, and if the university wants an official submission of the scores, go ahead and submit it. Other than that, if you're asking when they should be, when is the ideal time to take the scores, take the test, etc., it would be by the end of their 10th grade, and when they're starting their 11th grade, that would be an ideal time, because that gives them enough time to, in case if they have to retake the test, that would give them more time as well. But definitely we are not telling them they need to retake it, but if there is a situation where they didn't do the test in the first time very well and they need to retake it, that will give them a better time. And as for this, as far as the submission goes, as soon as possible, go ahead and submit your SAT scores officially to the universities that require it. Just go through the process and submit it. But then prep is very, very, very important. Do the prep well, take your time, and then submit it.
Right.
Okay, so one piece of advice that you want to give the students who are prepping up for the SAT or the SAT or any of the standardized test exams, what would that be?
Well, one piece of advice would be, I mean, so these days it's unavoidable to not be influenced by social media, right? Like, so you see
That's
posts
correct.
on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, anywhere, right? Shorts and videos and everything. And then there's Reddit, right? Where many
Oh,
of
yeah,
the test takers, they give their accounts on how the test went and how they practice for it. The
absolutely.
problem with all of this is it is their experience and it is not your own experience. So what usually happens is students, they start panicking, who have not taken the test, like, oh, I
Yeah,
went to Reddit, but
absolutely.
yeah,
Crazy.
it's like this sad math is too difficult or English is too difficult. So I would suggest that don't compare your level with the other students who have already taken the test. So just
Mm,
focus on what you need to prepare on, you need to work on,
mm,
and don't be influenced by all of these videos or posts that you see on the
mm.
social media.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Absolutely.
And
Mm,
or join Adficacy.
absolutely. Yes. So, yeah, so it's great that Edficacy helps them to personalize their SAT prep. Edficacy also starts at the fundamental level, so students can make a lot of changes as they go into the SAT prep itself, and they learn it well, learn the
Yeah.
programs and problems very
And
well,
faster.
and
And much faster.
much faster. So thank you, Vinith, for joining this program.